Welcome back, everyone, to the State Farm Analyst Desk, where Damwon took control from the start and secured a dominant win. I think the word dominant is actually not representative of what we just saw on the Rift. And I'd immediately like to connect it to what I heard here on the desk in Countdown from Yamato's side, saying Damwon is the kind of team that if they get their hands on a lead, and they don't necessarily need it to win, but if they do, they never let go. And they did this here.
Yeah, for sure. It all started, with the Hecarim. In most cases against Lilia, he's supposed to be on the back foot. But the moment you get a couple of kills with Hecarim, you accelerate those key items. We saw it happen. And then all of a sudden, Damwon just took a hold of the game, played for the Dragons. G2 knew that they had to force a fight at a specific moment in time. They went for it. And at least they made it quick for us. Because they ended the suffering there,
yeah.
So I think G2's game plan was actually to have a hyper-accelerated game from the beginning. At the beginning of the day, we talked a lot about one way in which you can take advantage of Damwon is actually going for a skirmish-heavy meta. And we saw repeat gank, actually, from Jankos. He ganked top, he ganked mid, he ganked top, right? And so they actually were able to get first blood in mid, and things were actually looking pretty promising, I think, initially for G2, but they kept trying to make these skirmishes happen, and I think this is actually where Damwon was able to get a lead. And, we want to kind of focus in a little bit on Ghost and Beryl specifically, because where things started to go wrong is when Mickey tried to force an engage on the bot side of the map. Bear in mind, this is a little after they get the first blood in mid, and then Mickey immediately gets punished by Beryl and Ghost. G2 then tried to make the same kind of skirmish up towards the top side, but notice here that it's Beryl that actually rotates first, even though bot lane has priority, which means that G2 are at a numbers disadvantage, and they end up getting collapsed on here.
I think the key thing here is just, at this moment in time, what wins it for them is the fact that Twisted Fate has a no magic mantle, which makes him survive just a little bit longer, enough for Canyon to get the first kill, which pushes him to level 6, and then Hecarim is ahead, and with these team composition against Lucian and the Renekton, champions that don't scale too well into the game, Damwon's going to have a very easy time, especially after they kill this Rakan here too.
And let me ask you this before we get to our next replay, which kind of sealed the deal. To me, it looked like whenever G2 pulled the trigger and decided to go for something, I'm thinking about the Caps move down to the bottom lane to push very far up and try and get that kill, but failing. Eventually, this dragon we're going to see in a second. Everyone knows it's coming. So certainly Damwon knows it's coming. Is G2 kind of set on the back foot because they're too predictable in terms of when they're going to pull the trigger?
I don't really believe in that, because to me, looking at the map state in that position, bot has push. Yeah. So they're like, we can fight for this because our bot lane gets here first. What they don't appreciate is where Beryl is and where he is in the river, which allows him to actually collapse first, meaning that that skirmish should have been a 2 versus 2 or a 2 versus 3, but it actually ends up being a 3 versus 2 against G2. So I think that a lot of this game, in my opinion, came down to poor execution from G2 in the early game. And then, as we said, down on the second they get a lead, it's just control. They never let go, and that's where you really get to see how dominant and commanding the team Damwon really is.
And it all got sealed at the Mercedes drive to victory from Damwon, the third Infernal Drake fight. And this was, again, as Yamato calls out, you know that G2 has to make a stand here, but you guys were oohing and eyeing at some of the individual outplays.
I think the key thing was actually what happened before this, just the patience of them not blowing all the ultimates at the same time. They had a lot of patience, and then eventually when there was the right moment to strike, they struck like a fist together all at once. They baited the engage, and the perfect flash from Showmaker just denied any potential from G2. And for those people that are at home saying G2 just ran it down, honestly, this was the best situation they could have hoped for, because they reached 2 core, and this was the best opportunity because they were getting heavily outscaled.
And let's talk about the emotes, fam. I know a game is not decided by it, but just think about the background of this Damwon who has been waiting to take their revenge on G2, and then Showmaker flashes the IG emote to Caps and the FPX emote. Listen, if you're gonna try and tilt them, I like it. I respect it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. You know, one that always talks about trying to get in their heads, the mental game, that was the perfect play from Showmaker, and I love the confidence.
And also the fact that, the big question mark for me and the edge that I gave to G2 was the mental, was the experience, and Damwon coming out swinging the first one is a very good sign for them.
Absolutely.
What's to come.
Let's look forward then. Let's take the picks and bans from game 1, and also with the additional info, G2 has elected to go to the red side. Now, Damwon is on a 24-game winning streak on blue side. The last time they lost on blue was at the Mid-Season Cup versus FPX. They are unbeatable on blue. What does G2 have to do?
Oh, dude.
I know. I dropped it
Oh,
on
that
you.
statistic, Jesus. Well, first and foremost, the Lucian flex was cheeky, but it didn't work. I think.
But I don't think that was the problem. Like, I don't
Frost said
if-
give Felty run back. That's what she said.
So I'm of the opinion, like, I'm a little debatable of the Renekton into Gangplank. Like, I think that what we saw was maybe Renekton blind pick, not as safe as they initially thought. But I think that a lot of the errors came from execution. Like, maybe the team fights were still going to be hard for them later, but I think that a lot of this came down to the early game. So I could see them running a very similar comp once again and saying, like, if we don't mess that up in River, then this is a very different early game for us.
Well?
I think that, like, I think G2 will come away from this sitting there thinking, like, we messed up and we gave them a lead, right? And I think that they won't be willing to, like, make drastic changes in the draft. Maybe they take Beryl off Leona because he's really good at that champion.
We need to go, but final note on that from the coach's perspective.
Honestly, blue side's been favored the whole tournament. This is the first time we saw anyone pick red, and I think it's going to continue in that fashion. Maybe a first pick Graves, and Damwon just run back what they've always shown.
Oh, let's see. The LCK champions kicked off the series with a win, and we'll see if they can go 2-0 after this.